Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Olympia Gore, and at this webinar today, we're actually going to be talking about email communication and etiquette. I hope everyone is having a safe quarantine right now, but I know in this virus that we have going on, emails are all the more important. And the only real way to communicate safely now is through online videos and emails. But for my generation, I didn't exactly get taught how to send an email correctly or how to use the right etiquette when I'm actually sending an email. So today we're going to get into a bunch of things that will be helpful for actually communicating through email. One very important thing we have to deal with is professional email addresses. Also, your written communication through the advantages and disadvantages of actually using your email, how to create a subject line in your email, how to organize your opening and closing statements, because a lot of times you don't always know how to start an email, and how to choose your recipients and what the recipient line actually means. Another thing we're going to get into is the etiquette levels, a convey of emotions, the signature, and the extender. That's the high impact email. So starting off, we're actually going to get into the four most common email actions. And the first one is just the regular action, which you are sending an email for some type of deadline or to perform an actual physical action. And then you also have the response. The response is only needed for a one-way message. You also have the read-only emails, which is just as it seems. You only need to read it, and it's more. And for the last one, we have the information only, which is something you just have to file away for the future as a reference. So, picking a professional email address is so very important. And you can lose a job or gain a job just from having the wrong or right email address. Now, it's so really easy and kind of simple to just use your name as the username, maybe your last name first or your first name last. And you always want to keep it simple when you're trying to create a professional email address. Nothing too wildly charismatic, I guess, or too inappropriate, like hot mama or sexy girl or anything. We see so many emails that start off at hotmail 20 at hotmama 27, and that's just not someone who you will want to represent your company with that kind of email. Also, remember when picking your email address, depending on what company you're actually working with or work for, 9 times out of 10, the domain name would be through that business. So you always want to pick a name that that business can be proud of. Also, when you're creating other email addresses, you want to avoid any affiliations or your own status. I know it can be hard sometimes, but trying to avoid adding your race into your email or your sexuality or your gender or anything like that. Try to avoid it. A lot of employers aren't necessarily going to want to hire you if you have an overly affiliated email address. Another thing is when you're picking your email address, do not use too many numbers because it can be one, confusing, and two, it can also be considered spam. A lot of different things and subject titles. We'll get into to that a little bit later, but different titles can be located as a spam, and your email will just send it to your junk file without you even knowing it. And also, you never want to use a joint email address. If you have a partner in your company or you're working with someone, You don't want to share your email addresses. Get your own, because so many personal information goes through email addresses. Now we have banking information, we have our credit information. It's too important to risk having someone that you have to share it with. Okay, so we're going to get into written communication. So some of the advantages of the email are they're definitely more efficient, they're faster. You can shoot someone a very small, simple email in 5 minutes. Also, emails, unlike a telephone call or a message or a letter that you wrote out and had to post to a company, it can be edited or revised. So if you, at the last moment, see a typo or forget something right before you press the send button, you can just go in and add that. And also, it is a reduce on shipping and mailing costs, especially to a lot of different companies. Shipping and having to send out different press releases and all of those things can become very expensive. So to minimize the cost, emails are actually here to help you with that. Now, some of our disadvantages are the accessibility that can be given just from having someone's email address. It can be very problematic if the wrong person gets a hold of just your email address, not even just your password. Another thing is, with emails, it's very difficult to interpret someone's emotions. So you don't always know the tone, and giving and relaying tone is very difficult to use. And also, you have the different viruses and spams that could come along with the wrong person having your email address. All right, when you're starting your email, you want to have your opening line, and when you're closing it, you always want to have a closing line. So your opening sentence, honestly, just say the reason for your email. You also want to ask, before you make that sentence, you kind of want to ask a few questions to yourself. Who am I writing? What's the reason? Do I need them to do something? What do I need from them? Do I need them to respond to me? Is this just an informational email? You have to ask yourself all of these different questions. And when you are opening it up, you also want to find different points of reference, different things that you may have in common. So maybe you have so many people at your job. You don't maybe know everybody that you're getting your emails from, not by name or maybe not by face, but just saying your title in the first sentence would make it easier for someone to remember you. And then you have your closing line. So before you end your email, you always want to thank the reader one more time, being polite before your closing remarks. Like, I look forward to hearing from you or seeing you, or thank you for your cooperation. And you also want to make sure that the last step is to include an appropriate closing with your name. So add something after your name to appropriately close the email out. Okay. For the recipients, the to line. The to line is actually for the person who's responsible for taking the action. So we also have the CC line and the BCC line. CC line is the courtesy copy, and then the BCC, for our CC line, that is expected normally, no response, and the recipient needs to, for the most part, either read or just file the message away. The individuals whose work is indirectly affected by the email should also be included on the CC. On the BCC, the blind courtesy is an invisible way to email someone, to email two people at once without one person knowing. And you should actually be very cautious when doing this. It's very tricky. So, be very careful. All right. And for your subject line, you actually you never want to send a blank subject. I know people who do it all the time because people will just go right past that. If you send a resume or any information to your job, we don't know what it is, and people don't always have time to click on unnamed emails to figure out what it is. You also, in your subject line, must be simple, clear, and concise, straight to the point, and just something very small that introduces what you want to talk about in this email. Also, you want to avoid using caps or special letters. So no all caps, no explanation points, and these things also the just like the spam I was talking about earlier, the cap blocks and the special characters and explanation points, the email automatically tends to send them straight to your junk or spam file. And you do not want to miss an important email because of your subject, or have someone miss your email because you sent the wrong kind of subject line. Now, there are different levels of etiquette to emails. In business emails, you have to adhere to different grammatical correctness. You have to make sure that you respect the business etiquette and culture. So no inappropriate language. You have to make sure that your spelling, that your punctuation is is perfect. So here we have a emotional thermometer, and this just divides when you need to be business and when you don't have to be business. For our next one, we have a convey of emotions. There is many different ways to get tone mixed up in emails. You can sound more angry than you meant to be or more frustrated than you meant to be. So it's very, very important that you make sure that what you're typing is clear, is concise, and it's exactly that you want to say. Make sure that if the tone seems a little harsh, that you can just clarify with whatever you're asking for, whatever information that you need. All right, and I want to thank you guys for listening in and tuning in on this webinar. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.